pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Thursday, May 17th, 2018. We had yesterday, Duane, a pretty big day of soccer. We had a nice game in the afternoon, Europa League final, Marseille versus Atletico, and we had Vancouver San Jose late last night, so a day bookended by soccer for me. Again, like pretty much most days.
Yeah, well, that's every day until the end of time, basically, as far as I can tell right now. You don't really get it. Maybe December is a bit of a break.
When?
A bit of a break.
When in December? When Bundesliga takes their day off, their month off, and when the Club World Cup is over? Yeah, I was almost really close to really caring about the Club World Cup this year, but I guess not.
Well, this is what I always used to say to people here in Toronto or here in Montreal before was, the Club World Cup, that's the ultimate prize, blah, blah, blah. I mean, in theory, but when was the last time you watched it? I mean, honestly.
2015, when Montreal was close. It's the only other time in my life I actually cared about the Club World Cup. It wasn't Marrakesh or Japan. It's always somewhere where, we can't really watch it anyways. And, and they're going to redo that tournament anyways. It wasn't on the agenda today, but, yeah, it's interesting.
I've always... See, I'm one of those people that wouldn't mind seeing a once every 4-year format for that, but I understand the reluctance. There's so much soccer right now, and the players are just getting beaten into the ground. So it would be something that would be interesting. But when the hell do you put it on the calendar? That's the problem. I don't want any less, but I don't want any more because I recognize that there's a lot. But the Europa League final yesterday was something that did cause a lot of interest for a lot of people. And once again, we have a Spanish winner. This would be the fifth time in the last 7 years that a team from Spain has won this. And if you go back a couple more years, you can go 6 and 9 too. So Spain and the Europa League is synonymous at this point.
So basically, if you're wearing white and red and you're playing in La Liga, there's a chance you win Europa League every 2 years. Either you're called Sevilla or you're called Atletico Madrid. You're going to win the Europa League. But anyways, yesterday, Marseille 0-3 for Atletico Madrid. And my little French heart, I know I'm wearing my English t-shirt right now, but that's because the squad came out yesterday and it was the first shirt on my drawer, but I was a bit sad yesterday at the 32nd minute in that game, Duane, when Dimitri Payet started crying when he was sitting on the pitch, knowing that he was subbed off, knowing that he couldn't bring his A game to this final, couldn't be influential in the result of this game, had to be subbed off, and hopefully that injury, that it's more precautionary reason why he wanted to be subbed off, because he knows the French squad's going to be announced any day now, if not today or tomorrow. He knows as well that if he wants to go to Russia, he needs to be in good fitness in a month's time, so he was subbed off at the 32nd minute, and I always get the feels when I see one of the players I like get taken over by emotion of the beautiful game that he loves so much.
Yeah, and look, anyone that says that the Europa League doesn't matter, I mean, you have a very narrow view of what matters, right? Yes, it's not the Champions League. It's not even really for many teams. It's a funny tournament in that you don't want to be in it, but once you're in it, you want to win it. Unless you don't want to win it. But I think the players always want to win it. Sometimes the management doesn't, and you'll see the teams punt on it all the time, but they don't punt on it late. Once you get into those knockout stages, competitive juices roll in, and they put the Champions League spot up for grabs. Sevilla certainly has taken advantage of that. Three winners in a row. Basically, it was the Sevilla rule after a while. They managed to qualify for the Champions League after the third one, and they went in there. But it's a fun competition that way, and the disappointment of Athletic. Can anyone really remember? And we have conversations on this show. You can go way back in the archives now to last fall when we were talking about Atletico in the Champions League and making comments like, oh, maybe this is the end. And, Simeone, there's only so long you can sort of demand what he demands out of his players. But, it just turned out it was a slump, and he got that back and got them back to where we're used to seeing them in Europe. And once again, another championship for Atletico, the first one since 2011, 2012. As you say, between them and Sevilla, Atletico has won 3 titles since 09-10, and Sevilla has won 3 as well in that stage of time. So that is 6 titles in the last 9 years, as we say.
That's not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. And I have to say, I was happy for Mr. Link to MLS for the last 2 months, Fernando Torres, finally winning a trophy with Atletico Madrid, having 2 spells at the club and never being there when they had a chance to winning that trophy. Back in 2009, we all remember he was with Liverpool. And of course, the last few chances he was with Chelsea. And he was coming back to Atletico whenever they won their last one too. So a trophy for El Nino. And now the question is, this was for sure El Nino, Fernando Torres' last game in Major League Soccer. The rumors do not want to die. Even though in Montreal we were told really clearly by Miguel that do not expect Fernando Torres. The closest thing to El Nino you'll get here is your weather patterns. So do not worry about Fernando Torres playing for Montreal.
Yeah, after last winter, I'll take an El Nino if we get that. Let the next generation figure out the global warming stuff. I mean, it was nice. He got the sub in the 89th minute, basically. I don't even know if he touched the ball, but he was on the pitch when Atletico, which is, I think, if you look deep into his heart, that would be his club. With all respect to Chelsea and Liverpool.
Oh yeah, he doesn't care about Chelsea. Come on, the guy was there for 3 years. No one was nice to him. No one was giving him any benefit of the doubt. The guy did what he could. And go back to when he was playing for Chelsea. It was exactly when Spain was winning everything, right? So there's something about that. Even though maybe Torres did not play as well with Chelsea as we would have loved for us Chelsea fans, he still represented the club pretty well by winning the World Cup, I would say.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at his career, and maybe we can have a conversation about that, his brilliance, his greatest years were at Liverpool. But as I said, he broke in and finished with Atletico. That is really the club that I think he probably holds in his heart the dearest. He went back there on purpose, as we said yesterday. It is a club that sort of creates a loyalty in its players, and I think that has something to do with just it's in the DNA of it. Like any second team. You look at the second teams around the world, and yes, I have a bias when it comes to second teams in cities, but put them aside for a second. And often you have a certain, as I said, loyalty, because there's always an easier option across the street, right? And if you put yourself and your fans that choose to support the second team or are born into supporting the second team, and the players that go through those, I think there is a sort of a passion about them that maybe isn't matched elsewhere. I'm not saying necessarily, I'm not saying Real Madrid fans that you don't have passion about the team or whatever, but I am saying that Atletico fans clearly do, and Atletico players clearly do have a dedication. And I think that when you look at their success, and I tweeted out, it's not the first time I've said this, that it really is remarkable to take a step and look at what Atletico has done since they won that Europa League championship in back in 09. They really have completely turned a corner, and this is a club that was, in the second tier, that played, Torres did actually play in the second division in Spain. This is a club that was in administration, that was nearly broke, that really was so horribly mismanaged at the management side of things, that what was an historically great club in Spain is, they are the third club of Spain when you look at the success. Yeah. They were down in the dumps, and they turned it around over the last 10 years. Simeone is a big part of that. This is another thing that matters a lot to them, that trophy. You saw that fan base there, and that was a rowdy atmosphere in the crowd, and the Europa League often is. Sort of a great, being in Lyon, easy travel for both sets of supporters. I think that probably added to it. So it was a fun game to watch, and as I said the other day too, in some ways, the Champions League final is what it is. It is the Super Bowl, quote unquote, of soccer, although the Super Bowl might be the Champions League final of football. That's a better way to put it. But
what is it? 1.068 billion people watch the Champions League final or something, and like 400 million the Super Bowl, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the bigger game for sure, but this is kind of the funner game. I love trying to explain the Europa League to non-soccer fans. Like, what does it mean? And like, you work yourself into a twist. It's just the Europa League. That's your answer. I don't know. It's the Europa League, man. It just is what it is.
It's usually it's games that are more enjoyable to watch. That's how I feel. It's like a Champions League with games that pressure doesn't get to the players, right? It's about the game. It's not about everything surrounding it, and that sometimes is beneficial. Just to continue on Atletico for a second, we've talked yesterday about how this could be Tony the Grizz, Antoine Griezmann's last game for Atletico, and he made it count. Man of the match, scored the opening goal, celebrated on only the way only Antoine can. A little bit awkward, not coordinated, but great dance with a little bit of personality in this mix. Yeah, it was a great time. It was, I kind of like to see Tony play. He's fun to watch. You know, we often talk about players and expectations and attitudes and egos and Ronaldo versus Messi and talent and showboating. And, you know, we need more players like Antoine Griezmann, who is not complicated. The guy doesn't do any controversies, doesn't talk. He does what he's asked. He does a bit more. He includes himself in the club. He learned Spanish. He's been there for a while, but he has included himself in this culture, and it's kind of interesting to see him in Lyon, close to his birthplace, truly embracing Atletico and celebrating like it was his birthday after he scored, and having the time of his life, and still taking the time to have a heart and kiss Dimitri Payet on the cheek when he was crying and leaving the field. Two colleagues of course, French national team. No, I just love Antoine Griezmann. Duane, I think we need more positive players like this. It's not about, you know, it seems it's always positive when it's Antoine Griezmann. He's like that little Frenchman that never does anything wrong and just plays great, and it's not about anything else but him kicking the ball, and I kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, let's have that third best player in the world debate now. Is it Griezmann? I mean, recency bias is going to play a role with answering this
Salah
today when he's man of the match of the European final, but he's in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, he is, and in a different way. I don't know, like pure striker in his. He's not big. He's not tall. He's not that. He's not strong. He has like 3 trunks of legs, and that's why he has great control of his movement and his body. It's because of the strength he has in his legs, but he looks like any other guy walking down the street, and he probably like is up to my shoulders. He's not tall, you know. I love that about soccer. I love that I'm taller than half the players on the field. I love that because I'm not that tall and it makes me feel good. But it's more that, you know, it's not about the attributes. It's not about what you were given when you were born. It's about what you do with what you were given. And I like that about Antoine. I like that the fact that he was never touted to be the top man, main man. He's a bit of a late bloomer on the international scene and club scene. And, you know, he's going with it. And it touched a little soft spot for me. It is what it's about. It's not about all the negativity, all feeling concerned and not feeling, oh, I missed my opportunity or maybe something. No, just put your head down, work hard, and things are going to come to you.
Yeah. You know my bias when it comes to the third best player in the world debate, the player that should have been England's player of the year, the Premier League, Kevin De Bruyne. But I think this debate's going to be answered in, let's say, a little less than a month, right? Starting in a little less than a month. So that's when the true debate's going to come in there, and the player that can step up and be part of that.
Can you imagine a knockout? Can you imagine a knockout game between France and Belgium, and where those two countries are right now in the hierarchy of world football? And the history between those two countries, of course, neighbors, friends, and foes for the last thousands of years. This could be a hell of a game just because of the composition of both teams, the talent. De Bruyne on one side, you do have Griezmann and others on the other side. No, if this happens somewhere in the quarters, this could be a heck of a game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm fascinated by both France and Belgium in this World Cup, obviously, and we're sort of evolving into this now. But they're dark horses in a different way. Obviously, France as a previous winner, as a team that's won European championships, that's gone deep into a World Cup a couple different times. You know, they're hardly a dark horse at this point, but at the same time, they're not amongst the favorites. You know, Spain, Germany, Brazil, those are the teams that most people point to. But France has got to be in that conversation as well. Whereas Belgium, small country, never won before, golden generation, but are we ignoring the possibility there? There's going to be a lot to talk about, a lot to break down in our World Cup todays, which are going to increase in frequency as we get closer to this World Cup.
28 days today till the Russia 2018 FIFA World Cup. Duane, as well, yesterday we did have another game in the docket, and this one was in Major League Soccer. Vancouver Whitecaps versus the San Jose Earthquakes, live in Vancouver. Late night game. I kind of like those late night games. You get home, you open the TV. Oh yeah, Vancouver is playing. Great. Let me get a glass of water and let me watch this game. 2-2 at the end of the game, and I have to say, Vancouver did show some attacking, I don't want to say prowess, but they did show some threat late in that game. They could have got a winner. Rena had the winner at the end of his boot at least one time, if not twice, at the end of the game. Same for Alphonso Davies. Davies couldn't get it on target. But what's coming out of this game, Duane? A lot of people are talking about this today. Yes, it was another maybe good result for Vancouver, 2-2. You kind of need to beat the San Joses of this world if you want to maintain your spot in the standings in the Western Conference. But for Vancouver, it's the inability of Kai Kamara to head the ball properly towards the target. Twice last night it happened. Perfect positioning. He's there. He's on the ball that's in the air. He's the first head on it. And just totally shanks it. Way too spiked down. Hits the ground way before the white line. Bounces straight up and is cleared by the defenders or the goalkeeper, or it's a save. Kai Kamara has been touted as one of the best headed striker in Major League Soccer. And so far, in the last few games, he had multiple opportunities, around 9, and nothing came of it. 0 out of 9, starting to be a pretty bad batting percentage, if you know what I mean.
That's not a good return on investment, no. But that is what he is, right? So I don't know. You live with it if you're Vancouver. But as you say, it was a better game overall. I thought they were half decent entertaining last night. Yeah. So that's something to build on.
They came back from behind too, right? So that makes a big difference, and they pushed for it. And yes, of course, they scored goals like Whitecap scored. They crossed and they center. They found a way to head it in the ball in the net, like AKA Kenneth Watson. But that's what it was, like you mentioned, entertainment at the end of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, and they needed those points there. Again, like I feel like we're beating up on them a little bit, and we are a little bit, but at the same time, it's just hard to really get a handle on them. And I guess we should really be quiet out here in Eastern Canada or Central Canada because the two teams that we're following most closely are, second last and third last in the East right now. So maybe we should be quiet and just accept that Vancouver's doing okay in terms of the points on the board, even if they're aesthetically not exactly exciting us.
Yep, you're right. And when we're, I think it all started not last year, but the year before, when Vancouver did a nice performance during the season. So we kind of were a bit biased by where they were at in their process and everything. And you had some great players coming in and out of the teams over the last 2 years, and you have some like Freddie Montero and everything. By the way, I don't know if you saw what happened in Lisbon 2 days ago, 50 people came into the training facility of Sporting Lisbon and beat up players, and Freddie Montero was one of the players that were slapped around. And so that's terrible news coming out of Portugal and Lisbon. But for the Vancouver Whitecaps, this result, I think it's maybe the start of some positives. We did see some danger in the last third last night, and that's one of the things we were wondering about Vancouver is how they create goal-scoring opportunities, how they create chances, how they create this quote-unquote expected chances, expected goals. Well, last night, there was a lot more of those chances. The few missed chances by Rena and Davies late in the games happen in a way that are more replicable, happen to the run of play, happen to finding the right man in the open space, creating an opportunity, Felipe finding the guy. So there is a lot of positives, and I think this might be too early, and I don't like to bring it game per game and see the evolution from game to game because every game is a bit in its own microcosm in a way. But I do see some progress, at least into the way they broke down, and a few breakthroughs last night against San Jose.
Yeah, look, and it's San Jose, so that's keep everything, into perspective here. The West still is a, mess, basically. You look at those teams anywhere from 3 down, and you kind of just shrug your shoulders and go, well, we'll see how this plays out. But certainly some good things to build off of last night, and more points in the border, points in the pocket, right? So All you have to do is get above that red line. As we've said many, many times before, we do actually believe that probably is the underlying philosophical, underpinnings of the Vancouver Whitecaps management anyway, is just stay above the red line and get a lottery ticket each year. And maybe one of those years the lottery ticket will play off. Not sure if that's how I would build a team, but maybe that's how they feel they have to. So 3 more points, or 1 more point, I should say, and away we go.
Yeah, away we go. And it sets us nicely for the rest of the weekend as well. A lot of games this weekend in Major League Soccer, of course. Premier League is over, Duane, so we only have the FA Cup on May 26th to keep an eye on. And, of course, the Champions League final is the 2 biggest game left in Europe in the next few weeks. And then it's the small break, and players will report to their training camp for the World Cup. It is going to come pretty quickly. Talk about 28 days beginning on June 14th. And if you are a club fan and you have a lot of players in your club that are playing for World Cup teams, you're about to lose them pretty quickly if you're in Major League Soccer. And, of course, there's multiple clubs in Major League Soccer with some players that are going to the World Cup. If we're looking at the Kendall Watson of this world, who's going to go play for Costa Rica, of course. One of the most known World Cup players in Major League Soccer for Costa Rica. And there's other as well, but Belgium, we'll see if Laurent Simon makes the team. That hasn't been announced yet. But there's other players like this. So let me ask you this, Duane. We're thinking about Major League Soccer. There's a 2-week break period. Which player off the top of your head could be missing the longest for an MLS team? Is there a player that will miss more than 2 weeks because his team goes far in the tournament?
Oh, that's a good question right there. I'd have to look that way. I think Costa Rica has a chance to get into the knockout round.
True.
If they get the right sort of results, and obviously they get the right results, but based on their play last time. So I could see Watson being gone for a little bit. That'll be something to watch for. I don't necessarily think that any of the CONCACAF teams are going to, well, obviously the U.S. isn't there, as we well know. We don't need to remind our American listeners of that, but that takes a lot of players off the normal consideration that we've been having here. But I don't see Costa Rica, to me, has the best chance to go beyond the round of 16 based on Mexico's sort of draw, where they look like they're staring Germany in the face in that second round or first knockout round. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of deep CONCACAF runs this year. And off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of players. If Simon obviously makes the Belgium team, then you're going to be looking at him gone for a while, because I do think Belgium will go pretty deep in this. Other than that, I'd have to really give it some thought. Maybe that's for another day. But we do have some time to break this down a little bit more. Kevin, you did mention just a minute ago the 26th actually is the Champions League final. The FA Cup final is this Saturday.
True.
Which is the final game in England.
Yes, Chelsea United.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about that. Maybe we should wrap the show up a little bit with your thoughts on the FA Cup. You do have a horse in that race a little bit. That's one of those finals that I'm going to have to grin and grind my teeth together to watch, but I probably will force myself to.
It's going to be fun to have you on the same side as I am for once. It's going to be fun to have you on my side. Duane cheer for Chelsea. Why not? Who knew? Hell does freeze us over at one time.
Yeah. There you go. That typically how I handle United in a final is that I watch it until the 90th minute, and as it goes into stoppage time, if United's looking like they're going to celebrate, I just turn the TV off because I'm just a better man that way. And if not, then I'll watch it to watch them cry. So I do have ways to watch these things.
Yeah, we all have our own things that entertains us. But when I think about this game, is Chelsea's only opportunity to win a trophy right now? Is United's only opportunity to finish successfully what could have been a great season with a few missed rendezvous during the season? Of course, they did win the last derby they had against Manchester City, and that's almost a trophy in itself. But winning the FA Cup for United would be important. For Chelsea, it's literally assuring yourself of being in Europe next year. So why not? Just win it. So that way it's in your own hands. You don't have to wait for results and wait for another result and have that spot go to another team. So for Chelsea, it's a way to maybe finish the Conte era with another trophy. A lot of talks saying Conte is leaving. And apparently it's either Conte is leaving or Hazard is leaving. One stays, the other one goes. Who would you pick? I know who I would pick. If I can choose Conte or Hazard, well, as much as usually I'm pro manager and I'm more in the optics of you can't change every player for the manager. So, but in this case, there's not 10 Eden Hazard out there. There's only a few, and you kind of have to keep him. And you want to, like, talking about maybe he's not maybe the third best player in the world, but he's in the top 5 discussion of the best players in the world, at least in the top 10 for sure. So if you have Eden Hazard, arrivederci, Conte. Bye-bye. We can find another one of you.
Well, managers come and go. I mean, look, obviously there are, Mourinho, Pep, Klopp, I guess. There are managers out there that Simeone, we talked about him earlier already today, that sort of are a bit bigger than the clubs that they're at. But there are few and far between, and I'm not sure Conte is one of those guys yet. He's one of I would consider him in that tier just below those guys where, he can always find a big club and will bounce from big club to big club, but he's a 3-year guy. He's going to manage for 3 years at a big club and then go somewhere else for another 3 years and so on and so forth. That kind of manager there. So yes, Hazard, you're obviously going to keep a talent like that if that's the choice. And if that is indeed the choice, then there isn't a choice here. It's you say thank you, Mr. Conte, for your trophies and move on.
Thank you for the league last year. Thank you maybe for the FA Cup. And arrivederci. Speaking of arrivederci, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. with World Cup Today, talking about a bit of the squads that were announced this week and other news in World Cup. It's coming in 28 days, so we're going to gear towards that tomorrow. And as always, until tomorrow, you know what I'm going to say next. Of course, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.